Ain't no law that walks the line. There's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel.
Hello everyone, my name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Builds. We got Joe here today, man. We're looking at some kind of divine plan or something where God plans out our whole life, man, and we're trying to figure it out. What's up, Joe?
Hey, what's up, Nathan? What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday. Yeah, I mean, really, when you really posing a hell of a question here, huh?
Yeah.
We're coming up, we're figuring out God's plan today, huh?
Well, kind of, I guess just, you know, how we see everything working out, because we're heading into some real harsh times, man, or it could be the bliss of times, and I don't know which.
Yeah, it always seems like humanity finds their way to these same crossroads all the time, and hopefully we pick the right path, right? That's all you could hope.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're working pretty hard, man, to get stuff done and build things, and then I just hope that, you know, the plan is not to wipe it all out before we get, you know, to the point where we need to.
Yeah, wouldn't that be like the right thing for a change? And you know what? Seeing this where everybody is these days, I think we stand a better chance than maybe we had in the past. Maybe that's the case, and I'd like to believe it is.
Maybe we have the ability to leave the earth or for a little while it calms down, huh?
Yeah, you're not kidding there. Well, I think one way to like look at this question for what it's worth is maybe it goes back to the root origin question of everything that we try to figure out all the time, which is why, where do we come from? Why are we here in the first place? What was the purpose of our creation? If you know the purpose of the creation, then you could also kind of summate where the plan ought to be, and where it's going. I mean, I personally think that, if you're under the belief that, like I am, that, we all have a part of God's light within us, right? That's our life force, that, returning that life force back to the whole of God himself, so all the pieces come back to the whole. I think that would ultimately be the end game.
Well, eventually, I mean, but I'm not ready to get there yet.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be a forced event or an event at all, right? It's just more the light making its way back, and it not needing to continue its path here, right? Because you look at like entropy and things like that, right? The energy can never be destroyed, right? But the energy can stay in a certain area and go back into the system here without ever returning to a source. So I think that the end goal there is just having that life force energy return to the source.
Yeah, what I'm worried about, Joe, is we're entering a time where we're about to either go further in civilization than they have in the past, or we're about to restart. And my concern is if we don't do it right, we're going to create our own doom, our own path of destruction. And my thought about the plan was, did he plan for us to evolve this much and to take that final step to go into the universe, you know what I mean? To go into the solar system, to learn things? Or is it our destiny to repeat it again because we didn't learn our lesson?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think that's like the question of them all, isn't it? Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way that I look at it is just sort of one of these what is technology and what is advancement anyway? I'm kind of reading what you're saying is more of like we're at a crossroads technologically, and there's ways that we could go with it. Are we going to create our own doom with the technology, or are we going to Is it going to bring us to another level of existence, right? And I guess reworded, that's sort of what it is. I mean, I guess time would tell, but if the technology really just coincides by and large with the spirituality aspect of it, then then that tends to be the important fact.
Well,
The technology is neither here nor there. We could have created our own doom with sticks and rocks. It would have taken more time and been harder, right?
well, okay. So a lot of civilizations get technologically advanced, and then they make a decision. Do you live in the parameters of the earth? Do you go back to build the buildings, stay in line with earth, live off the earth, take care of earth? You know what I mean? Kind of like maybe like an Indian tradition where you don't go too far. Or do you blast technology all over the place and go crazy? You know what I mean? There's two sides of a society. A lot of people would like to go back to the old ways, but keep their medical stuff up. And then some people just want to be in the future. So we're kind of at a crossroads that way too. So when I ask what his plan is, it's taking into account that we are somewhat technology further than other societies were, but I think we're in opposition to what other societies were. They were advanced, but they lived like they weren't. You know what I mean? Like they could have all the advancements, all the flying cars or whatever they wanted to, and they just chose not to.
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of foreshadowing our Atlantis discussion a little bit, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as we've discussed so many times before, technology all looks the same. I think where that angle kind of becomes more relevant is digging deeper back into the ethos, so to speak, of theology. The Garden of Eden being a perfect place, right? And that perfect place, when you live in such abundance, you actually don't have to really have any sort of belief or faith at all in anything, because things are taken care of. You don't have to concern yourself with sustenance, because everything you need to sustain yourself is right there at your will, right? So you could take from that, and it's bountiful and endless, right? And you don't have to worry about your health, because you're immortal more or less, and you can just sustain forever, so you don't have to worry about any sort of thing there. And when you live without such a care, you become blind to anything greater than you are, right? Like it's really only through any sort of struggle that the need for a belief in something greater than yourself even manifests, right? So it's through the exile of Eden that the need for a belief in anything even takes place. Now, again, foreshadowing a little bit on the Atlantis episode that hasn't aired yet, and I don't want to do that too much, but there was one element that came up that had to do with spirituality back in those days, and the answer was kind of plain and simple. It was more a philosophy of how to live, as opposed to a theology or belief or anything like that, because a lot of the concerns that I'm saying, it was an Eden-like situation where you don't really have to look beyond yourself. You don't really have to concern yourself with what lies beyond death, because what lies beyond death is, there was like some expectation of almost immortality to a degree, right? So a lot of these things kind of didn't have to exist until some kind of struggle came about, right? So we're in these struggle times again, but it seems like with the way that technology is advancing, we could potentially find ourselves in a time of abundance again. So what is interesting is, once you transition back into a state of abundance, if you don't maintain what humanity has gained spiritually throughout, it'll all be lost again. And you need both. You need both, right? So I think that's the problem that humanity has faced, is we've been in times of plentiful spirit with times of struggling and hardship, and then times of plenty where the spiritual aspect of it falls to the side. And you even saw that more recently in like Rome and stuff like that, when you look at like Caligula and like those types of bits of history where I mean, it was at like the peak of the Roman Empire. The guy had everything at his whim, and morality and spirituality and all the gods and everything like that fell to the wayside as tail, only for them to basically participate in the most grotesque of earthly desires.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Joe. I don't ever want to get to the time again, and I know some people are there now, but where you don't value life. Those kind of people, those kind of emperors, that kind of thing, never again. Never again. I never want to return to anything like that. Not where the church burns you at stake for your belief. I don't ever want to see somebody standing over us and we give too much power to, that destroys us as human beings. And I think that's part of the crossroads, because some people now are under the belief that you don't have to believe in anything, that you can throw everything at them, you know what I mean, and just destroy a human person just because you can. And I don't like that. You know what I mean? It's not something I believe in. So right. I guess as much as technologically, we have to make a spiritual choice here and say, this has to stop. We advance the right way, or those people don't advance at all. Because
like anything else, once you throw the system out of equilibrium, those are the consequences you face. So, if you're going to have the plenty and the abundance, you can't disregard the morality and the goodwill of humanity. That's what it kind of boils down to, and it's easy to do. And you see it with people who have ungodly amounts of money all the time, and things at their disposal where you could just indefinitely snap things into existence. They've reached that same crossroads. They just reached that same crossroads at a different time than society, where they could either push agendas and spend their money to influence others or whatever have you, or they could just kind of worry about themselves. But you see the debauchery that a lot of these people fall into, and the despicable behavior. And frankly, it's because the abundance is there. If they had fear of loss, they wouldn't participate in those sorts of things. What it boils down to.
I guess
when you don't fear loss, what stops you from doing anything?
Well, see, that's the thing. If you think you're going to live forever, or you think you're coming back, then all that stuff doesn't matter to you. But I think in the long run, all of it does. And I've always come up with the belief that you yourself have to be a good person, regardless of how everyone else is. That immorality, and I'm not talking, what you do sexually or anything like that. I could care less. Okay. I could care less. You know what I mean? Who you get on your knees and say the prayers to. Okay. In the end, I'm just looking at how you treat everybody else. That's it. Do you treat them as human beings? Do you give them the time of day? Do you make sure that the homeless person has lunch? If it's your last dollar, do you give it to them? Are you a good person? You know what I mean? And I think that's what we're losing. In some of this society now, you see it all the time. People aren't like that. They're turning their nose up at people. I'm too good for this. I got too much money for this. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And I think it's the wrong way to go. I don't like it. And I don't like the fact that we're going to have the technology to make everybody's life absolutely horrifying if we do it wrong. And that scares the living daylights out of me.
Well, how do you, okay, so without just us all assuming, I mean, what do you think about the technology specifically that you're referring to would make people's lives horrible?
Well, when you start messing with resonance and you can turn things off and on and the planet runs on it, and then you could create earthquakes, you could start creating weather events, you could start manipulating things that are not natural for people. You can control the height of the water, you know what I mean? Things like that. The gravity in your planet, those type of things is what the next step of technology are. And we've been holding it back for a while. My concern is you get one a-hole out of line and we're all screwed. So how do we stop that? Because right now, when we look at every government, they're going backwards. They're starting to punish people for words, memes, stupid things. You know what I mean? And it's going back to the dark ages. In some countries, it's horrifyingly bad. In ours, we started to turn that way, and now we're kind of turning back the other way. Ultimately, where do we land? I don't know.
Well, right. It ends up in cycles. And again, that goes right back to abundance, because abundance isn't only a material fact. It's also just a fact of, what you have the opportunity to do without consequence. That's what it boils down to. Like, so when you're able to say what's on your mind without fear of consequence, well, then you do that. When you have that freedom, you don't necessarily focus on that freedom because it's just simply something you have and you can do. When you start imposing, hypocritically, silence upon another person just because it's not something that you necessarily agree with and it's not your agenda. So you feel that you have some moral obligation to shut down something that rubs you the wrong way because of how you see it. All of a sudden, you don't realize you just dismantled the system, because you really can't pick and choose when there's freedom involved, as to what other people do. People are either going to, be useful in their rights, or they're not going to be useful. But you can't take away what you find not useful because somebody else might, right? So it totally shuts down the entire system, left and right. And, as long as the people that are imposing the, change, the societal change, they're not affected, right, in that short term, then they'll move ahead with it. The problem is that they'll realize in the end that they are just as affected as anybody else. It's just a matter of them saying something that somebody else doesn't agree with. And that's only a matter of time, right? So people got to be careful and smarten up,
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what that is when you start banning words. That's all that is. The funny thing is, when I raised my kids, man, it was, I didn't really care if they cussed or anything. And as they got older, they just didn't care for doing it because the thrill of it was gone. You know what I mean? Oh, wow, that's a big word. I can use it and I can push it out there. And they never cared. You know what I mean? It's totally different. It's what people can't have is what they push and they make problems with. So, yeah, I think it's both sides when you get into this stupid thing. You know what I mean? They both push it too far and we end up in a crappy place. But I'm just talking about the morals of a person. I'm not, like I said.
No, and I get that. And I do. I mean, at the end of the day, with what you're saying, though, about the language aspect of it, there really are no bad words. There's only bad intent. I mean,
yes,
if you could sit there and swear up and down and, never say a harmful thing at all, but I'll tell you what, you could say a whole bunch of stuff that, contains no profanity whatsoever and absolutely annihilate. And it's just the matter of what your purpose is there, and the unfortunate reality of it too is that a helpful person, who cares and sees something maybe that somebody doesn't, sometimes could have the intent of helping and also harm at the same time. So this is stuff that you have to be careful with. Like, you need to be able to see outside yourself to be able to negotiate these circumstances properly. That's what it kind of boils down to.
Well, yeah. If religion stops pushing things on people, we might be all right, because that's where most of it comes from. That, or they take TV as religion and then totally go backwards. That's why I say it's about the moral compass. You know what I mean? If somebody has their hand out, do you help them? You know what I mean? If somebody needs your help, do you go out there in the middle of the night? I mean, that's kind of, the thing. My father-in-law was one of the greatest people ever. He would be there anytime you needed him. You know what I mean? Day or night, you call him, he's right there for you. And that man went to the big man upstairs. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I just see it that way. All this other stuff is kind of like just gibberish, water under the bridge, could care less. You know what I mean? My concern is the wrong person getting their hands on this stuff and then destroying all of us. You know what I mean? Just because they can. And so when I ask what God's plan is, did he look out for that? Did he make sure the right people are in place? Did he educate us well enough to sidestep those issues in order for the betterment of humanity? Do we, go out and really break through this time? Do we not repeat the same cycle because we failed as human beings again?
I mean, this is just a matter of opinion, and I suppose that there'd be 1,000 different ways to think about anything that we're talking about. But it's my opinion, at least, that that the true God, the not necessarily even the creator, just the source of energy, like God himself, that we all have a life force piece of. I think that he has an inconsequential role as far as what occurs. I think that there's a little bit of a non-intervention type circumstance that he takes, and his involvement is more to do with whether your energy is going to rejoin the greater whole energy or not. I think that that's really his place. Once this earth came into creation, I think that the true God, that was his role, was not even so much oversight or anything to that nature, but just letting things play out as they may. And that's kind of the nature of the free will that we have. Because, we have free will to, do right and wrong. And, even the source, like I don't think that there was necessarily perfection in source, nor was it ever claimed. I think that everything that we were torn off of sort of is just the best it can be sometimes, and sometimes it's better than others. I don't know, and it's just the sort of the way to look at it from a different perspective that's still a Judeo-Christian perspective. But I think that all the theologies of God ultimately tie together in the end. It's sort of just different ways of explaining the same processes and everything.
So you're saying there is no plan. It's pretty much roll the dice. You got free will. Just get it done and let's see where you end up.
Well, I think that the ultimate. Okay, so I shared with you earlier. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but I think something that makes a lot of sense, at least for me, is like the Gnostic creation story, which is a very interesting one. I won't go into like the whole deep of it, but just at surface level, you had the monad, you have actual God. He's the source of all, and part of the monad is the aeons, and the aeons are basically angels. They were fractions of himself in a lower state of being, okay, that were kind of individuals that had different archetypal properties that all reflected a different aspect of the monad. Okay, so you have the one God, and then the God is kind of split as the dimensionality of it falls, right? and that splits him into different energy levels of archetypes. And there was one Aeon, right? That's name was Sophia, and she was of God's wisdom. And again, because God is not necessarily perfect, right? The wisdom wasn't necessarily perfect either, but being that she was of wisdom, she felt that the things that she would do would be wise. And one day she decided that she was going to, without the consent of the monad, more or less, make a creation of her own. And what she birthed was ultimately a disaster. It was Yaldabaoth, and Yaldabaoth was the demiurge. He was he thought he was God and answered to no one. And because he had the ability to create as well, that's how he professed himself as the God. So what Yaldabaoth did was he created the material world. And it was a bastard. And the reason he did it is because he wanted his creation powers weren't strong like the Moad, where he could create a spiritual being. He could only create these physicalities. So he created all of this physicality, and he did so in the likeness of the higher realms. So heaven, and for all it is, he tried to replicate by creating the universe, more or less, and earth and everything in it. And what ended up happening was, it was, how long are we in? 26 minutes. It was a fucking disaster. All right. It was a fucking disaster. Like, it was all just a bastardization of the cosmos for what it really was. And he decided he wanted some kind of like toys and whatnot. And, he wanted like to create his own aeons, more or less. So he looked up to the aeons and their likeness, and the unknowing God, and what was presumed to be his likeness of the Moad, and he made humans in the likeness of the aeons and God. But he lacked the power to breathe life into anything. All he could create is physicality. So, he became really pissed off. Kind of got back to Sophia, and she brought it back to the rest of the aeons and the Moad. And they realized how human beings were physical manifestations of these heavenly beings. And they felt terrible guilt over this whole debacle and the creation of these motionless and animationless, more or less spiritual beings.
Okay.
So the Moad allowed for the spark of life and soul straight from the Moad himself to be put into the physical creation, animating the humans. Now, what that caused was a circumstance where human beings in their animated physical form, are part of the God himself. A little piece of that light is in every single human being. And the problem is, the creator, this Yaldabaoth, right? He doesn't have that spark of the Moad. So we're a greater being than that which created us.
Okay.
And that kind of pissed him off. So then he became like a real asshole and started like doing some Old Testament sort of shit. And the whole, so when you look at that Gnostic story of creation, and it doesn't matter what you subscribe to. Okay. Oh yeah. And by the way, to then enlighten his creation, because he still had dominion, Yaldabaoth still had dominion, right, over humans, even though we have this divine spark. But we were being taken advantage of. We were being kept in Eden. So this is where people might sit there and like nod out if you subscribe to traditional Christianity. The Moad himself sent down Lucifer, who was the light bringer, and he showed Adam and Eve that, the light brought by this Yaldabaoth was not the true light, that the true light was the Moad. Well, Yaldabaoth didn't like that one bit. So, what is he? So he basically literally demonized, right, Lucifer, and said, this guy's full of shit. He's not the real deal. He's evil. He's bad. He's trying to bring you down, whatever. And he's like, you're under my rule, this, that. And he just did what every good politician does in a situation like that. He gaslights people and then deflects it. So he becomes the good guy and the other guy becomes the bad guy, right? So Lucifer, the light bringer, was trying to bring the knowledge to Adam and Eve, and he was actually the snake on the tree in the Garden of Eden, right? But it wasn't for bad purpose. It was to bring to their attention that they had this divinity that they had no idea about, and that Yaldabaoth was not God. So after they got kicked out of Eden and stuff like that, like times were rough. Yaldabaoth was freaking out, trying to basically annihilate humans and punish them for being insubordinate for like thousands of years. And then the Moad, again, this time sent Jesus Christ, which more or less exposed to the entirety of the world that there is one God, that the God is a good God and he's a forgiving God, and that you all have this divine light in yourself, and that there's things that you could do through forgiveness and joy in your heart and stuff that you have a pathway back to the actual true God beyond this creator God. So that was sort of the Gnostic story. So I think that the reason that I'm bringing any of this up is because it's just it's an interesting perspective about faith and non-faith and transitional periods that humanity potentially could have gone through. But also, if there's any sort of validity to that at all, I think that the ultimate goal of humanity would be to return the light back to the Moad. That's what I've, you return the light back to the Moad, because this was, it was out of pity that we were created. Love, but pity, and realistically, to be a part of the whole again is sort of the goal.
Okay. Man, a lot of stuff about Moad in there.
Yeah, the Moad.
Okay, I can understand that. I'm not going to say anything against it. Interesting how the story.
Neither here nor there. It's just more, another take on the same story.
It all mirrors the same thing, man. I keep hearing the same story, no matter which religion it is. It all comes back to the same thing.
Well, to be clear, the religion is Christianity. It's just literally another. It's, you take the lens and you shift it 90 degrees, and then it's just the same story and told in a different way. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Kind of some weird stuff. I'll be honest with you, man. I don't want to give that light back right away. I want to stay here as long as I can. And I know there's other people that feel differently. I just, you know what I mean?
No, but that's normal and okay though. Like the point is that you are here, so you make the good of your life, and then when it's your time, you give the light back.
I guess.
And no, I don't know what you're referring to, Sinner, about the Flash.
The only Flash I know wears a red suit with a little lightning bolt on it. That's the only one I know.
I mean, and I apologize if it's in context, but there's a lot of things that I can think of when Flash comes up, so I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, yeah, and there's some people out there. One guy is really high on the Bible there. It's a book of moral stories, and I think some people take it too literally, and they start killing people for it, and it's wrong. And they shouldn't do it. They lost their morality. And the leaders of that lost it a long time ago. So I think there's a lot of things that hold us back. It's like trial and error with everything. And that's why I say if you're a good person, because there's a lot of people that do different things out there. And I could still care less that they do them. It's when you violate the line is when I care. You know what I mean? When, you start taking out bunches of people, and I don't care if it's predestined or not, you start doing it, man, you got to go. And that's the only line I draw. If you start maiming people, doing things like that, you do things out of lust and kill people, you got to go. There's, if there was a big hole, I'd just drop you in it, and that'd be it. I'd be done with you.
Well, I mean,
that's
I don't disagree, but if you're dropping people in a hole, what makes you any better? There's got to be a realization of that too. Righteous vengeance is only righteous to the person doing it.
God created Gabriel.
That's the rough thing.
No, God created Michael.
Yeah.
And
right. You got to let him. Job. You got to let him do his job.
Well, then he better get busy.
And Michael is an Aeon, by the way. So you see it's beyond an overlap. It's just literally a story told a different way.
No, I know that.
Just saying.
I don't know. Let's get back to the, is there a divine plan? A lot of people think that, we're just heading for a train wreck here. So, and you said it's free will. So we don't have a plan. We're just out here doing the best we can, hoping to not blow ourselves up in the process.
Well, that's a little loaded because there's free will, but there's also I can't necessarily call it and again, this is all my opinion, not necessarily like a divine plan, but it's more like a soul contract type of thing where there's certain things that each of our energies have to be able to accomplish in however many iterations it takes to accomplish them.
Okay.
Sort of like the completion of the Kabbalah, the tree of life, right? You need to be able to climb that tree to reach the ether, which is God, which is ether, which is, you see how that overlaps. So, so there's certain things in our life that will, because of our purpose in this life, that will continually reoccur, okay, in different forms until you reach where you need to, and hopefully you do. But there's free will involved, and also intuition involved. There's intuition and being able to recognize the moments and the opportunities, and then there's free will of actually going through with it and doing what you have to do to be able to overcome these life goals that are probably preset for you before you ever reach here. And when your intuition is in check, a lot of times you could see these opportunities come up and then see the path that they lead, and then you follow that path.
You said we have free will. Now you're saying it's laid out before us. So which is it?
No. Yeah, okay. Well, you're missing what I'm saying. The goal, the things that we have to go through.
I get that part.
Right. That's laid out for us beforehand. Getting there is our choice. So you're either going to do it or you're not. You're either going to pick up on the cues and follow them and then overcome these things, or you're not. So yeah, I think the purpose is predisposed, but the function of making it actually happen is that's what you're here for, and that's your free will.
I don't know, man. It doesn't sound like much of a plan. Sounds like a bunch of debauchery. And then if you're lucky, if you make it to the end, if you figure it out. So
yeah, it's kind of that way. But I mean, right? Isn't that what the creation story I just told you also said? Because these two ideas come from two very different sources. You see, in two different things, but yet they're saying the same exact thing. It is a debauchery, but it's also kind of your mission to find your way out in the end. And when they lay out commandments and stuff, that's just the most basic principles that if you were to follow all of those things to a perfect T and Q, that you have the best shot of getting out, regardless if you know what your purpose is or not. Because not everybody knows what their purpose is. You may think you do, but deeper down, there's something else going on.
Gotcha. So there's a purpose that you mentally think that you have, and there's one that's driven into your brain that's stuck in there that seeps its way to the surface.
Right. Well, that's where desire tends to start to make things get sticky, because we all have things that we want to do. But then there's also these drives to do things that we don't necessarily understand that become counterintuitive to our desires. And we often view those things, because of human psychology, as things preventing us from achieving what we want. But sometimes if you just go with the flow of what it is that you're doing rather than what you think you want, sometimes you're going to achieve that ultimate goal, like that you didn't even know you really had. It's sort of what it is. It's like the world trying to push you in a different direction, but you're resisting it.
Well, I'll be very honest with you, Joe. If we're in Eden and everything's perfect, and they said you can have free will because you want to discover things and learn things on your own, let me tell you, I'm leaving. If that's the case, I'm getting out, because I won't be controlled like that. That's not what I want. You know what I mean? If free will means I can blaze my own path.
No, I mean that makes sense, because when you do away now, and that's what I was talking about, the crossroads we're at currently. See, if you have a high degree of spiritual enlightenment, okay, which could only be met through the times of scarcity, and realized and evolved over time through that scarcity. If you reach in a time of abundance, it's on to you to take with you that spiritual enlightenment that you've achieved and maintain that during the times of abundance. You see, that's sort of what it boils down to. Like it's not a but for. It's not, well, now I have what I want, so I get to abandon the rest. See, because too many people fall into a side of one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, look, it sounds great. It even sounds wonderful. I don't know that it's for me, because stuck where you can't learn doesn't work. You know what I mean? Even if we all dance around like fairies, eat apples, and are happy, whatever the case may be there, I'm just not interested. You know what I mean?
I don't disagree.
I need more. I need to understand it. I need to see why it works, how it works, what's going on there. And the choice of starting over, you know what I mean, and learning it on my own is fine. I'm good with that. I guess it's different for everybody. Some people just want bliss all the time, and that's great. I can understand that. People just waiting for the society where they can get paid to sit home and do nothing and look at their cell phone all day, and that's their life. I guess whatever. This is not for me.
Well, as somebody who's had plenty and somebody who's had none, I'll tell you that, you feel more having none than you do having plenty, which it sounds weird and all, I guess, but when you have plenty and all you want and then some, it's good, because your concerns kind of go out the window, but that's fallacy. See, there should always be concern for things, right? And the things that you do, and all that freedom that you're afforded through that plenty, it just it doesn't feel the same. It does, so it's like a form of numbness that occurs, and that's why people that have so much for such a long period of time, a lot of times, they fall into these situations where they're either doing the most extreme of certain things, like either sexually or under the table, or screwing people over, or or things like that, because like that makes them feel something, but it has to be that extreme at that point, because regular things just won't do it for you anymore. And there's a numbness that occurs, and unfortunately, when you're struggling and you're grabbing for every little bit that you have, you feel every little thing too. So you have to choose carefully. It makes you think about what's really necessary, what you really want. Sometimes, like, if you've ever been in a position where you have to choose between a pack of pork chops that'll last you a week or something, versus maybe just buying a box of ramen noodles so you could then continue a subscription on your phone. You know what I mean? Like these sorts of things stop you in your tracks and make you like think for a second, like, okay, what do I do here? And then whatever it is you're doing, you're either going to do one of two things, but you're going to feel it either way. You're either going to be happy with the choice that you made and appreciative the fact that you were able to like make that happen, or you're going to sit there and be bitter at the fact that you just couldn't have it fucking all. So, and that's sort of what it kind of comes down to. This is why, your spirit's got to stick with you during times of abundance. But that is the crossroads. In your time of abundance, does your spirit stick with you? Because if the answer is yes, it's going to be a glorious time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
Right. Then it's going to be a glorious time.
To be honest with you, Joe, I don't see the point in all that debauchery, dude. I just don't. Like, how could you do all of that, even if you have the power? Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So, and that's just, I guess, my personality trait. But I think for a lot of people, they would abuse that power. And at least initially. And, but I think some people would just do great with it. You know what I mean? They do great things, Doctors Without Borders, things like that. They always give their time, regardless of how much money they make. Relentless helping people. There's a lot of them out there that do the right thing. But there's, people who take baby oil, do other things. So, I mean, I guess there's both sides to it. I just hope that the people like me survive this whole thing.
There's a lot of people out there that are really well off that you'll see they'll do missionary work and stuff like that in the poorest places in the world. And trust me when I say that, as much as they want to help those people and as much as like it's within their means and abilities, so they do, like, I'm not going to call it a selfish act because it's certainly not. But what it is an act of humbling to, it's a reminder. It's a reminder of the feeling that you need to sustain in times of abundance. And I mean, Sinner said himself, like, well, the spirit can't leave you. Okay. Like, it's with you. Now, I don't disagree that the life spirit that I'm talking about, it doesn't leave you necessarily. Right. But what it does is it it could become oblivious and almost turned off in a way to the greater good. That's kind of achieved. It just as something could evolve, it could evolve. And if it devolves, then it just becomes, meaningless in its function. All it does at that point is sustain your own life. And that's the most physical aspect of life, is just existing.
So let's kind of take this in a little bit of a different direction. So we're kind of in the middle about there's a plan, but there's not a plan, but then there's a right way to do things or a wrong way to do things, and everybody decides on their own. And then there's a contract that you make before you come into this life that we all are unaware of. And if that's the case, then, man, I don't know, if I signed it right or didn't, or what the heck that's all about. You know what I mean? Like, because if I wasn't me, because I would definitely change who I am from who I was. So, I mean, and that's probably the way it was set up. But let's just move a little forward with this. Do you think we're going to get past this age and move on to space-faring people, or do you think we're just sitting on a planet screwed? Or we live in the happy times of, you know what I mean? We run around our little, you know, Indian outfit or something, in our little leather pants, and you know what I mean, living off the earth. What do you think's going on there?
I mean, what I think is that humanity is so much better than we often give credit to, and that we constantly focus on differences and perceive them as threats as a society. And we constantly wave the worst of society and the worst doings of society up in the air while all the good acts go quiet and silent. I think that people are inherently good. And I think that people, generally speaking, you know, like, don't do the wrong thing, you know, on purpose, strictly to hurt people as a common occurrence. You know, I think that people are mostly good. That said, when you're talking about sort of the route that, you know, the context of what you're talking about, I think we're in less danger than we might think we are in, for the same reason. Because, for instance, like, nuclear bombs capable of wiping out all of humanity and the planet as a whole have existed for 80 years. They were used twice in, you know, in killing and tested. But other than the two times, the first times that they were ever used, where the power of them was realized, there have been multiple adversaries that have that capability, and it just simply hasn't come to fruition. And it hasn't come to fruition because we're better than that. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not necessary to necessarily have them, right? But the lack of use in hostility has been sort of proof of concept here for 75 years now. Okay. But that's also considered. Now, that doesn't mean that nobody on Earth is capable of misusing that same technology, right? But not everybody on Earth has that technology, right? Not everybody on Earth has that capability.
So that asks the question then: if they suppress the technology, is that a good thing? So, if the, you know, everybody can't have it, and only certain people are in the know, is that a good thing? And keep in mind that's the whole Knights Templar. They get the information, they keep it, they don't give it back, they don't show it unless it's on their temple where you can read it and you understand it, and they do that throughout history. So, was that a good thing or was that a bad thing?
Throughout history, it was kind of a good thing because there was a lack of equilibrium for a long time. Power struggles all over the place. You could look at a map over the past 300 years and tell that by the changing border lines and the changing allies and the changing names of nations, right? So, you know, the world needs to reach a certain level of stability before anything could come into common use, because at that point there always has to be some kind of factions, because there needs to be equilibrium in order to keep order. You know, so if you don't have two sides opposing each other in balance, then, you know, realistically, that the whole world peace, that is world peace at that point. You know, you kind of agree to disagree, but the world keeps spinning. And, you know, one person's not going to make a move because the other person can make the same move. And that's exactly how this world has continued to spin for the last 75 years. Okay, but you bring up the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar actually believe the same thing that I just told you. all of Knights Templar, Freemasons, Rosicrucianism, okay, is all based off of Gnosticism. All right. And, the Knights Templar themselves used to, have a skull, right, that they used to have as an idol, and that idol's skull was of Sophia. Like all their stuff boils right back down to that. And, you look at like Skull and Bones organization, that's a Rosicrucian society, right? And what's that skull? It's the skull of Sophia. You kind of have to know these things, to make the connections. It's sort of what it boils down to. But then the Knights Templar, fell victim too of the whole heretic circumstance, where they were considered heretics for their exact beliefs that I'm saying, and they were the same ones that were oppressed. It's just interesting to know and understand these sorts of things, because it's that knowledge that is the occulted knowledge. So, when you talk about Knights Templar having the keys to the wagon, so to speak, as far as like the technology and the whole ideas are concerned, they do, but the spiritual aspect is the other. That is the wagon. It's not the engine that runs the wagon, it's the wagon, though.
So I've seen it like this in my life anyway. You're given the answers once you ask, right? So they can hide it all they want. I'm still going to get the answers. You know what I mean? And all I have to do is ask. And they appear to you, you're giving it to them, but you have to be worthy of it. Otherwise, you're going to just repeat the same old garbage all the time that everybody else repeats, and you're never going to get it any further. And that's the way I see it anyway. But, I think it's good that they preserved history, that you could see it. And maybe they did, and I'll say this, maybe they did put it out there, and we just don't see it right. And that's what I mean. They put it on the church. They put it in there. When you stand in a certain part of the church, you get different sounds. They put all the vibration technology. They put the symbols for it all over the church. They continuously put it right in front of everybody's faces. They just didn't teach you how to read it. That was...
Well, here's the thing. You get up here all the time, Nathan, right? And you talk about the science, talk about the concepts, the ideas. And, I think that the similarity to what you're saying right now about them is held within yourself as well. You say things 100 different ways explaining the same ideas. And the one thing that's the reoccurring thing when you're explaining them is what I think people don't see, what I think people don't get. And you're probably right. That's the thing. You could say it and have it mean nothing sometimes. And I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about anybody in general on anything that's deeper than surface level. And you fall right into the same category as them. These societies, these all the occulted information, everybody's been trying to say the quiet part out loud for a long time, but there's really no words necessarily to properly make anybody understand, because the answers are within yourself all the time. And you could either look around you and realize what it is that you're looking at, or you won't. And that's the same. If you can't look within yourself, you actually can't look outside yourself either. You can see things, of course, but it's all going to be very surface level stuff. When you look deeper into yourself and then deeper outside yourself, then all of a sudden everything starts tied together.
Okay. I guess you got to be ready for the information, huh?
Got to be ready for the information. And what makes you ready for the information? Experience. That's it. You need to have gone through certain things yourself in order to be able to be ready for that information. That's it. Because you will not see it the same. You will not feel it the same. You won't think about it the same. You definitely will not see it the same. It's plain and simple.
Interesting. Because I'll be honest with you, Joe. if somebody picked me up tomorrow in a UFO and gave me all the information, it's not really going to surprise me. You know what I mean? For most people, it'd be like jaw on the floor, not be able to retain it. Buddy, I'm going to remember everything. You know what I mean? When you show me, you're going to show the world. That's the way it's going to work. And if I learn how to build it, you know what I mean? And I won't, leave until I do. And, I'm not going to let you wipe my mind or anything else. I'm going to show people. But again, with limitations, I don't feel everybody needs everything. As long as they're able to live harmoniously with the world, I'll be the one to take on the burden of the information. And I think there's a lot of people like that. You know what I mean? Nobody wanted the nuclear bomb to be built, but I think they felt they had to. It's part of learning in our society. The unfortunate thing is a lot of people died because of it. And, it really sucked.
And that's the thing about life just generally on this planet that often sucks, is that nobody is immune from the inevitable, which is, when you go how, or, what you've accomplished before then, and there's all sorts of nefarious people out there that they think that if they can structure the world in a certain way, then it will be it'll be Eden again, right? And a lot of that could boil back down to, reduction of population and just realizing that we're unsustainable at the numbers it is. And it's almost unfortunate that this conversation took place before the Atlantis thing, because there's so many things from that become relevant here. Those were not words out of my mouth. This was out of somebody else's mouth, and it just directly coincides with everything that we're saying here. Yeah. Which is super interesting when you think about it.
Yeah. Just say hi to Gerald out there.
Gerald, yeah, I saw you in the chat, man. What's going on? Jesus for life, brother.
Yeah, I think I disagreed with you.
Okay, I guess there's not nefarious people out there then.
I don't know if it's that part. No, I think honestly, man, if I want to say this. See, I still think, and Gerald said, if you get picked up by a UFO, then they take your soul. And it depends if you're going to let them or not. You know what I mean? You ask for forgiveness from the Lord, and he hands it to you. You know what I mean? So you have to remember that. So you're not out there taking everything from them. You're not following their path. You're not doing what they want. Now, if you're one of those people that get suckered into that, well, then, yeah, they took everything you have. But if you're not, then, I don't care where the goddamn information comes from, man. I'm going to learn it for the betterment of humanity. So,
well, you got to remember something. Proclaiming Jesus Christ in front of an alien will get rid of the alien. So,
well, then, so be it.
Yeah, that's there. There's been studies done on people who have abduction experiences, and people who have been abducted multiple times, people that whatever, and there was a major difference, because it seems like a lot of people, no matter what their religious belief or their level of religious involvement was, that they felt to proclaim Jesus Christ in those circumstances, and when they did, they went away. And that was consistent, no matter who they like anybody who had that sensation to proclaim Jesus Christ in front of an alien abduction situation. 100% of the people that said it had the same experience of it leaving them the hell alone.
Yeah, well, seems like
I can't read that. Can you read?
If you picked up by a UFO and called them to you, otherwise you will never see them. They're afraid. Okay. Well, then you wouldn't have to worry about it.
I agree with Gerald there. There's if you have a high degree of spiritual enlightenment, they will not come to you because they know that you'll be able to kind of defeat their energy. That's my opinion of it. If you call upon them or you lack that spiritual enlightenment, and you also kind of just act in fear and not love, then they'll take full advantage of you. This is because of what they want.
Like succubuses.
That's exactly what it is, man. They want your energy.
Yeah.
Because the only people that have the life spark of God is humans.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't have to worry about that, huh? I guess I'll never see an alien in my life. So, yeah, not concerned there one bit. Very comfortable in who I am. So, yeah, that's crazy. So, the bunch of succubuses in a UFO. That's the story of my life.
I mean, Sinner said it right. Not all experiences are like that, but there is such thing as like, and you could call it whatever you want. I guess people see it differently. Aliens, or could be demons, or some kind of negative energy event, whatever it is. There's a difference between that and something that is similar in presentation but not intent, right? Intent always spells it out.
Yeah, they'll never show up at Gerald's door. We know that, Gerald.
Yeah, well, you could suck them into a black hole and spit them out the other side if you need to. So, not all of us have that ability, brother. I mean, I do, but
I'll tell you what, man. When you start running some of these machines and stuff, and you had the thing when you're meditating and saw it, you start seeing these little dark things in your room, man, and they start moving on you. It kind of concerns you a little bit. Yeah, they don't bother me. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, come over and talk to me. I dare you. You know what I mean? And they won't. So.
Yeah. Well, I've discussed some of the things that I've seen when I'm in that, what do you call it? A sleep paralysis state and stuff. And I mean, honestly, some of it is horrifying. Like, this would be professing Jesus and they could go away and stuff, like all sorts of stuff. But, then there's things that like would be otherwise startling or whatever that I've experienced, right? That I had no fear of because like it just didn't. The intention did not feel the same, right? You know the difference. Like, you ever have somebody who's like kind of horrifying looking, like be nice to you, and like it kind of wears off, right? Like the fact that they're horrifying looking wears off once they're kind. So it's sort of the same deal.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of horrifying people, Joe.
Me too.
You know what I mean? And still hasn't bothered me. There's a lot of them. And, it doesn't mean your brain doesn't work and start looking at them and going, why do you look like that? But that doesn't mean that it's bothering me. You know what I mean? I could care less. I've seen all kinds of monstrous things, man, and I still don't care.
There's also all sorts of R to X rated stuff that I was about to say that I'm not going to.
Yeah, don't go there. Yeah, don't go there. Bad enough last time when you went there. You're filing a patent for that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Just don't forget to spit on it.
Huh. There's an inside joke for you. Oh.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think there's something out there, Joe, and I just don't think we know it. And it probably has to go back to if you did sign a contract before you were born, that you decided what kind of person you were going to be, and that's it. And for the people who didn't choose that, then they're the people that see aliens and get the succubus on them, and you know what I mean? Whatever. But
so the way that the Kabbalah works, right? Like the tree of life.
Okay.
Is you more or less have to make your way up to the top. Okay, which means that you have to complete each level. All right, and there's 3 columns. And in the columns, there's a left path, a center path, and a right path. And then there's diagonals in between each of the attributes. Right. And there's certain karma events and stuff that roll over from past lives, let's say, right? That actually have to be blocked. They're blockages that have to either be cleared up, or if there's something you've already completed, they could be kind of left alone. But the case in point is that you have to check off all the boxes, right? And, when they calculate your Kabbalah, which is done through Hebrew gematria, which is numerology, okay? That has to do with astrology and your personal information, your given names and so on, all translated into numbers, right? That's how they figure out where you're at in this life, because none of it's a coincidence. So, like, for instance, like in my life, in my tree of life, I only have one more connection to make before I'm done with my whole entire tree, right? So I've already worked through most of it. So what was interesting is on my tree of life, I only knew it years and years later, but what I needed to accomplish actually happened to directly coincide with the same exact thing that I've been in a secular pattern with, which is, connecting wisdom with love. It's very interesting. So I need to be able to find love through wisdom. And then once I complete that, then I'm done. Everything else is done.
Nice.
But you know what? Everything is easier said than done. Knowing what you have to do is half the battle, right? Well, I could have told you that without even having my tree of life developed. But I had it developed because why not, right? And that's what I was told, and I was like, well, isn't that funny?
I wanted to say something real quick. God tells us we aren't in control, that we're ants. Couldn't be further from the truth, man.
Well, no, you're wrong. The God of the Old Testament more or less said that repeatedly, treated us that way.
Well, then I'll ignore those pages of the book. I'm not listening. I came back here for a reason, and until that reason's done, you know what I mean? I won't leave. So to me, I'm not an ant, not a servant. Okay. I'm here of my own free will and choosing to be here and doing what I do. You know what I mean? So I disagree with that. So I'm in control of what I do here. So he may, whatever. Only at my choosing.
I guess I'm asking for clarification on the chat just because I want to understand what he's saying. But Charles Milligan said that's not true. That you're right. Oh, sorry, went away. That isn't really God, Nathan. You're right. I just don't know what you mean by that.
Okay.
So if you want to provide clarity on that, I'd love to see if we could elaborate.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, Charles. Yeah, that's what I was saying, is that the Old Testament God isn't the real God. That's what I'm saying. The God of the Old Testament isn't the real God. So the whole first part of this, cast, I was talking about like the Gnostic belief, the Gnostic creation, and yeah, I 100% agree with you personally.
Let's see what Gerald says.
That's good old Yaldebeo, man. The demiurgos.
Being in control of its free will and the consequences for not doing as he asked. Now, look, I understand what you're trying to say and what you're actually saying. What I'm simply saying, it's damn buttons. All right, is that I don't look at myself as a servant. You know what I mean? I don't look at myself that way. And you give yourself to a higher power willingly, not because it's preordained. That's where I'm at. You know what I mean? I do things because I choose to do them and because I feel it might be the right way to go. But I'm not preordained to do that. I'm not being forced to do that. I'm not being told it has to be that way. If I choose to go that direction, it's because I chose it. And that's where I'm at with it. So a little bit different, I guess, than some people, maybe, good or bad or indifferent.
Yeah, I mean, you could get to know God very well through inflection of your own light and spirit. That's sort of what it boils down to, and it's no different than what you say about, like what you said about good old Jack, what you said about Sal Pius, right? It's that if you take the interview and you cut out all the noise,
Yeah.
the hoot, the hollering, the nonsensical, like, back and forth, and you just listen to the key points of what's being said. It's the same thing within yourself. If you get rid of all of the noise and the horse shit, and you actually just focus on the light for a minute, you could actually get a good sense of God. That's what it sort of like, you'll never know God, but you are part of God. It's sort of what it comes down to. You can never know his greatness, is my point.
Well, I'm not
You can never
disagreeing
know
with his greatness.
And I don't think he necessarily wants to be served as much as you ought to be serving the light that you're given within yourself in order to be able to be ready to give it back. Because giving it back that's the great ultimate goal. You want to give your light back to God. That's my opinion. Again, all of this is opinion stuff, but you could choose other words to say it. But every no matter what you subscribe to, other than atheism, says the same exact thing. So,
Well, look, I'm not disagreeing with God or his power or anything like that. Please understand that that's not where I'm coming from. So I'll tell you a little story, okay? And I had busted my back. Got back from that, had surgery on it, got everything worked out finally, got over drinking all the time to deal with the pain and taking all the pills in the world to get rid of the pain. And it came a point where I just said enough's enough, and I was done with it. And that day I stopped, and that was it. I made a choice. And after that, I did the right thing. Give to people. Make sure that if my family didn't need it, it was given to someone else. If it was my last dollar to go in to buy the soda pop, I gave it to the person in need before I felt I was in need. Anything that I could do. At some point, it reached a point where there was a guy in his car beating the living daylights out of it from the inside, like it was going to start the car, right? And I thought to myself, I could pull over and really help this guy out, push him off the side of the road, maybe help him fix his car, right? So I pulled into the parking lot and I thought to myself, I'm not going to walk out there. And then a guy approached me to open a soda, an older gentleman. He looked right dead in my eyes when he did it. And all I had in my head was, I'm not ready to go. Okay, I had more to do. I wasn't ready. And it could have just been there was a bad thing going on with that guy in the car. If I went over to help him, it would have extended onto me that my life was corrected and I was ready to go on to the next. You know what I mean? Maybe I filled up my little tree or whatever it was. That's why I say I have free will. I said at that point, I'm not ready. I have more to do here. And until I do that, I'm not leaving. And that's what I mean when I say free will. It's not about whether you're giving your life to the Almighty. It's not about when you're done, if you return to the source. You know what I mean? Not about any of those things. It's about I made a choice to stay here for the betterment of humanity. So that's what I did. You know what I mean? That's the reason I take it that way, and it has nothing to do with the power that I believe he has, and will influence you to do things or whatever. Has nothing to do with anything like that.
Well, what's interesting about that is we've talked about stuff like that before, right? And that kind of comes down to and it could be, again, it's just an opinion, but it's like the connection to the higher self. Time is just a funny thing. It's very subjective when you're in, a meat suit. But the higher self, it doesn't really exist in the same time that we do, right? It's in the future and the past simultaneously, as we are as well, but just in a greater, more tangible sense. And there's certain intuitions that our higher self kind of feeds down to us that make it through, that give us that gut feeling, that sense of connection and guidance that we have to realize and follow. But I think it was said in the chat earlier, and really I just can't, was put really well, like the whole entire situation is fractal. It's a fractal situation, so when you have God up above, and then you have the angels or aeons beneath, and then if I was to go with the Gnostic teaching, right, it's then you have the aeons creating a demiurge, and then his archons, and then creating physicality, and then our spirit given from above. That's the connection. That's what jumps the bound, right? Is that spirit connection. So we're part aeon, more or less, but it's fractal. So everything that deviates each level down, for the most part, breaks off into pieces, and it fractures into smaller and smaller bits. And for what it's worth, what makes us different, what makes us better, and what makes us God's children is the fact that we jump the timeline there. We have divine essence straight from source, which so do the aeons and the angels. We might have less than that, okay, but nothing else in the realm has it. And that's what it boils down to. So, it just becomes interesting, because you have this higher connection, and the higher connection, like the words, the intuitions and stuff, doesn't necessarily come from source itself, but it does come from a higher place that's more in tune and connected with source than we are in physicality. But we have that direct connection.
I just want to tell Jeremiah out there, good job, brother. Good job.
Yeah, man. That's very cool.
So reading the chat, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I stopped that nonsense for a good long while too. And not that I ever really abused it, for what it's worth, but I got back to the point where, like, the dabble is nice. Because, like, it's like not a regular thing, so it's cool. But man, that's hard, and I really commend you for that, man.
Oh man, I went down a dark road with that too, man. It was bad, man. They wouldn't do surgery, they wouldn't do anything for me, you know what I mean? Work comp issue. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, I broke one side, worked 6 months, broke the other side, worked 6 more months. Here I am a year out with a broken back, crying, going to work, laid out in a parking lot, and you're not going to take care of it? I mean, seriously? And
no, that's rough.
It was, dude, it was like the roughest of times, and I didn't handle it well. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it was a whole disaster. But
yeah, for what it's worth, and I saw my dad struggle with that, and therefore I just never did. Like, I just kind of said, you know what, that's good. But it got to the point where, like, even just like a little bit here and there, like, I just said for a while, I was like, you know what, I just don't need this at all, like at all, for no, like, I just went with that. But now I'm sitting there like, I like a bourbon every so often.
Yeah. No, hey, congratulations to you for it, but I can't do it anymore, dude. I'll be honest with you, man. That's why I call myself Old Man Bills, because I could hardly walk some days. You know what I mean? Those parts don't work like they used to. It used to be, man, Speedy Gonzalez going through and working and handling things. Brother, I could barely walk now. And it's bad. There were times where both sides went out. They were on the same level, and they were pulling apart at the disc. So it was like, you could lose your ability to walk, couldn't feel my legs for hours. Things like that. It was just horrifying. So, yeah, but you get through it. Thankfully, I can walk, and I appreciate that ability, and, moved on. But yeah, but at some point you just got to say no more. You know, it stops this day and no further. And when you take that power over yourself, you can no longer call yourself a slave, even if it's for the right reasons that you're doing it. I won't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. And like I said, I saw my dad go through it, and it's just like, wow, you know, such a good guy, but like such low points for what it was worth. Like, you know, such bad low points, and you know, always forgave him for it because, like, you know, at the end of the day, I knew who he was. But you know, like it definitely had a hook in him, and it was just awful to see.
Yeah.
Gerald did say something though, that he said that air, water, the evil, greed. Oh wait, no. Oh yeah, evil, greed, and ego of men's hearts with no humility or compassion towards others. Yeah, he said something before that. Air, water actually is the evil in men's hearts responsible for the suffering. So that was the part that I wanted to comment on. So that's actually cool and true, right? So, you know, in like meditative practices, generally speaking, right, breathing is a big part of that, and how you control your air intake. And it's not what you learn when you first learn breathing exercises, where it's like deep in, hold, and then out, and everything. It's just more subtle prana pulsing. You know, it's like very quick, fast, and light to get everything you need. And the whole entire reason for that is to allow the heart's magnetic field to expand. So what he's saying is absolutely true and correct. It's about getting what you need, no more, no less, but getting it in an effective pulsed manner, right? In sync and tune. That actually expands the heart's field.
So let me ask you this: when you start meditating, do you pull your body out of the state that it's in and into another one? And what I mean by that is, you could be running and out of breath, and then you set your mind to calm yourself and find another place. Do you do that when you meditate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to call that advanced, but that's beyond just the surface level. You know, I think that
I'm just saying in the beginning of it.
Yeah, I mean, having control over your body just generally is part of it. There's things that you could do to alleviate your own pain and discomfort, like physically and stuff, through meditation. That's a pretty basic principle. So you have more control over your body than you think you do in meditation in general. And that could even be like something like you're saying, for instance, like just being able to recuperate.
Okay. I guess I'm going in a different place with this.
Sorry, maybe reword it or something. I'm sorry if I missed the point.
So, like I told you, I don't do meditation sitting down or anything like that. I'll walk, and immediately I could put my heart in a different rhythm.
Yeah,
I put my breathing in a different rhythm. My mind is conscious of what I'm doing ahead of me, but my subconscious turns into something else, right? I'm going into information. I'm rethinking of things. I'm building things in my head, all while still consciously walking in the correct line to get around where I need to go, right? So that's what I mean. Now, you might do it sitting down, and that's probably the difference, but it's a complete control of your body and what you're doing at that point.
it is. You know, the walking for you is interesting because, like, especially if you have like pain and discomfort and stuff like that, like you've said, it makes sense why you would have better success meditating walking. Okay, because if your body is acting as a noise with its pain and discomfort, by putting the body in motion is distracting the noise of the pain in the nervous system, allowing your brain to be able to you know, make more deep neural connections, you know, ultimately. And yeah, like in those states and everything, you could definitely have greater control over things like your heart rate and stuff like that, because once you can achieve at least at minimum that level of neutrality, right? With that level of neutrality comes the control that's associated, once it's in practice. But like I do meditate sitting sometimes, like sitting in position. More times than not, though, I meditate laying down. And frankly, if somebody were to pass by during one of my meditations after like I've entered sort of into the meditative state, they'd probably just simply think I'm sleeping. But I'm not. But I'm not sleeping though.
Interesting. I just asked because everybody sees some things a different way, so that's why I asked. Like I could literally walk in here at about 2 a.m, like I do, and then at 3 a.m, it would seem like I'm completely zoned out. And like my wife will tell me all the time, like you're there, but you're not there. Like and what I'm doing is I'm building stuff. I'm just in another place. I'm seeing things for what they actually are. You know what I mean? For like an hour or so at a time, and then boom, I'm back out of it and normal again. So
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why I asked. Some people are different. So
no, and that makes total sense. I mean, for what it's worth, like I went to the park with my dog today, did some, ball and did some walking about and took the trail into the woods and then followed the stream or whatever. And there's like this little stream that you could jump over and make your way across, whatever. And then you're on like a small little like island, so to speak. And it's like right in the rapids, right? And there's like some fallen trees and stuff that you could like sit on. And I sat down by the side of the stream and just kind of watched the flow of the water and whatnot. And, I do that as just sort of like a practice in general, because I mean, as like I could kind of try to get my head around some of these flow patterns and interactions that occur just like in the science aspect of things, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of that I've learned through the flow of water. Most of it I've learned through the flow of water. Like as far as the visual aspect, the understanding and the intuition on it just being, I guess, a little different. But
is that like a meditative thing, or is that like Schauberger, how we learn the energy in water?
Well, okay, so it's both, because I went there originally just sitting there and just like kind of enjoying it, looking at the different flow patterns, looking how it beat around rocks and dropped off and all this stuff. And actually, I found something fascinating that I think I sent it to you, but I definitely sent it to Brandon, but we'll talk about that later. Regardless. So it started off like that, but then I sat there for a solid like 45 minutes. And definitely after maybe like 10 minutes of actually like observing, like I drifted off of observation and just into like a more neutral state. And it really helped with that, I was still fully aware and conscious of everything that was going on, but I was in my own little world at that point. And there was no real word thoughts going through my head. It was just sort of silence of just the running water. That's it.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sound of running water I'm old. I got to go pee every time I hear that. It doesn't work for meditation for me.
That might not do it for you. I mean, I want to get your prostate checked.
Yeah. Oh, no. Not by that doctor you're thinking of. Oh.
There's a device for this.
Oh, man. Oh, dude, somebody in the chat. All right, Eric, you got me. Dude, the Three Little Bears, fuck, all the nursery rhymes. I think he's just having some fun now. It was funny. He's the gingerbread man. Nobody can catch him. Having fun with this. Oh,
actually, I'll take a second. I'll talk about the observation that I made. It was super interesting, actually, right? So there was like this little waterfall, and I'm talking about like basically a few rocks that were just simply higher than the rest of the flow of the stream, and the flow of the stream was pretty good. A lot of snow's melting and stuff, right? So it was heavy flow, and then it just dropped off at this one area, and then what it did was it was continuing along its way, but something was bringing it back up and around, right? So it was actually barrel rolling in a cyclone, but but like perpendicular. You know what I mean? Like running the other way to where you would normally see a cyclone, right? So it was running that way with no hollow in the middle, and it was actually counterflowing against itself. And then because of the surface tension and the slip, the flow was going underneath it, and it was riding up as the flow was going underneath it. And you could actually see a null zone and a counterflow. And what I said right there from seeing that flow was, I was like, that's a positive energy, because there's no way that the energy that carried it would have been enough to sustain enough for it to then fight against itself and then overcome it to the point of, in that case, well, I didn't want to call it the point of propagation, but point of, that it dropped off. So that's exactly what that was. And what did it? Well, it's a cyclone. So you have a lateral vortex that's self-sustaining and putting out more power at the surface than was put into it to make it, go around. So you could see the phenomena in nature. And this is getting your head around the situation, knowing like these little nuanced things to look for, because you know how big the space was where this was occurring. It was this big out of a whole stream. It was a space this big where this was just occurring. And, if you think about the mechanics of how that occurs with the flow of water, you could also think about what is analogous in an electrical system to make the same exact thing happen. And that's what back EMF does, right? We know about the effects of back EMF. So that was literal water back EMF flowing back onto itself in a sustainable fashion. It was super interesting, and I have it all in video. So I sent it to you. If you didn't watch it, watch it.
Yes, I watched the video of the water.
Yes.
I was wondering what I was looking at. Now I can go back with context and figure it out.
Yeah, I had to point it out to Brandon. So I have things with arrows. I'll send it to you after.
Oh, man. So funny. Okay. Oh. Yeah, okay, so let me just ask everybody out there, what's the consensus here? Overall plan or free will and we make our own?
Wait, I'm interjecting, or hybrid of the two.
Oh, man, you got to make it confusing. Okay, go ahead. You said a hybrid of the two. Is there more explanation there?
Well, I already kind of said it, but yeah, you have a purpose, and your purpose continuously puts things in your path to have you follow these purposes. But it's ultimately up to you what path you take.
Okay.
So that is the hybrid of the two.
So I'm going to check off every box whether I want to or not, is what you're saying, along the path.
Well, no, because you could have every opportunity to fulfill your fulfill whatever it is and never do it because you've chosen not to. But that doesn't mean that you lack definite purpose. It just means that either you are blind to it or fought against it. That's all. Well, and frankly, I think for most people, it falls into the first category where they're just blind to it. They think that the things that are standing in their way are things standing in their way when it's actually the path they're supposed to be following. But their desire doesn't align. Like I said earlier, their desire doesn't align with their purpose.
Gotcha. Yeah, everybody kind of agrees with you, Joe, that it's a hybrid of the two.
That's it. You're either going to see it and do it, or you're just going to not, or be none the wiser. Right. And the consequences that you get to come back and try again with that as karma against you. That's my opinion, but you're not going to get off with not fulfilling your ultimate reason and purpose,
You're just not getting out of it, huh? That's what you're saying.
Not right. You're not getting out of it. That's the consequences, that you get to come back, try it again under harder circumstances.
Oh, great. Maybe I failed a couple times already then, huh?
Well, I mean, that's tends to be. You know?
Well, it is. But I think that people should see that so that
Yeah, a little preview is going to be cool on that, definitely.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, you guys are going to love this. I'm telling you, this Liz was amazing.
Oh, she's awesome, dude.
Like unbelievable, and she has her own channel too. When we drop our video, you'll get all the information, links to her channel and everything. But
I got a question. Is there any ancient library that you know of that we haven't found yet, or that could be out there?
Definitely. There's the myth of the Hawira labyrinth in Egypt, which only recently the Egyptologists said, oh, by the way, it's not a myth. We actually know it exists now. I went there, and I could see that the Egyptologists have started work looking at it, digging it up in bits. But I think it's too big a job for them. But if they go down deep enough, they'll find a library.
Is it scrolls, parchment? Is it animal skin they wrote things on? Do you know what it is?
No, it's crystals.
Oh, man. So, just so you guys know, she remembers her whole past life as being in Atlantis for 15,000 years. So, she goes back to the sites that she visited throughout her life at that time, in this time now, and verifies, what she knew and all the different things and sites and just everything around it. So I think it's so cool, dude. Her channel's awesome, by the way. I went over there and watched several videos on that, and she's really good at bringing you through some of this stuff. So
yeah, Nathan, did you have the other clip when she was talking about Toph?
Yeah, did you want to see that one?
Yeah, roll that one too. Might as well.
Okay, give me a second to pull it up. Should be
might as well give them like a good preview, because this one's going to be worth it, and we're definitely going to have her back, because I don't even think we scratched the surface with her, to be real.
Maybe not the preemptive of the other stuff first,
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, is there any correlation that you're aware of between the plant and like the emerald tablets, or anything along those lines?
Well, I don't actually know much about the emerald tablets. I do know about the books written by Thoth, but he wasn't called Thoth to me. He was called Tehut. But I don't really know anything about any emerald tablets.
Well, can you tell us about Tehut then?
Right. Well, that's a big topic of conversation.
Yeah, that's one I'm interested in personally. So.
Okay. Well, Tehut, he came into our civilization at a time when my brother had just started developing the technologies. And basically, my brother was looking for a new place for our whole civilization to move to, because we were suffering from this group of nearby primitive people who would randomly raid our where we lived, run through the place naked, screaming and yelling, and do unpleasant things if any of us was caught out in the open, steal whatever we had, and it was very unpleasant. And so he was busy looking for a new place for us to go to and develop our civilization more, because he was getting this technology together. And one of the earliest technologies was the flying technology. So he was traveling around looking for somewhere, and he came across this place, and he could see a tall tower, and he could see a city. And he went and had a look from the nearby hills. But what he saw was very sad. He saw people basically carrying bodies to a big pit. And it looked like most of their people were dying. and he thought, well, he better not get too close in case it's some kind of disease or whatever. And so he was in the process of leaving, and he saw this man nearby to where he was also watching the civilization from a nearby hill. And this guy started waving to him and begging him to come over. And he decided it probably wasn't a safe thing to do. So he took off and was going to leave. But something made him return. He just felt such guilt and such sadness for this guy that he went and collected this man. And this was Tehut. And Tehut had actually returned to this place after having been away, and he'd been studying at some other location under someone called the Great Teacher. And he'd returned, and he'd seen the same thing as that my brother Uran had seen. And he was also of the opinion that he shouldn't go anywhere near the place. So my brother took him back, but didn't go straight to our village. He took him to a cave and just hung out there together, kind of get to know him, see if he was a safe guy to introduce, and also to see if either of them basically died. If they'd got whatever was going on in this very sad place. And they got on really well. They were both genius level, and Tehut became a very big part of the way that the civilization developed. And much later on, when it was deemed safe to return to that area, the two of them went back and they collected anything they could that might have been useful in terms of knowledge. And but that was how Tehut, who wasn't part of Tantal, became a fundamental part. He then went on to marry my grandmother, which is another story altogether. But yeah, so his knowledge was incredible, and the combination of him coming from this other civilization with some knowledge, and I have no idea what that civilization was, combine that with the knowledge of what Uran was coming up with naturally from just being a genius. Uran was the kind of like Tesla level thinker. And between the two of them, they just, the technology and the civilization just mushroomed from there. But when my grandmother was accidentally drowned, killed in the Nile, Tehut decided that he didn't want to continue living, and he was just going to write in books all his knowledge, and he wasn't going to take any of the longevity anymore, and he was just going to pass away, and he wanted to join her. And so I have these memories of him in underground passages, busy writing out all these books. Some of it was like a physical book, and some of it was somehow getting it into a crystal. But he was just so determined before he passed on to write down everything he knew. So that's Tehut in a nutshell, really.
Well, that falls into place pretty well with, what's known of him. So that's pretty incredible.
So I don't know when he started getting called Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus or any of that, but he was always just Tehut.
Dude, that was awesome.
She said in there, because there was some chat going on, well, who wrote the Emerald Tablets then? She was saying, well, she wasn't really aware of what he was writing, but he was writing everything he knew down and socking it away. So it's not that she said that he didn't write the Emerald Tablets. She just said that she wasn't really familiar with what he was writing down, but that he decided that he was no longer going to live, knew that his fate was imminent, and just started socking away all the knowledge. And, presumably at that point, if you want to reach for something, I mean, the Emerald Tablets would have been a part of that.
Right, considering wrote everything in stone or, you know what I mean? In crystal, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sherry's Rosen keeps on saying Lilith. Yeah, Lilith was what Adam's first wife. Right. And she was like fallen.
So real quick, Jeremiah, when you're done with your project or you got results or wherever you're at in it, you're always welcome to come on and share it if you want to. So I'll just leave that invitation out there for you. So
yeah, and you definitely should, man. The new format that we're doing just seems to be really, really inviting for that sort of thing. Get up here, say your piece. It's great format for that.
Yeah, we do that on Thursdays. So yeah, hook up with me if that's what you want to do, and we'll schedule it out. But I think, Joe, I'm going to premiere that video on Tuesday. So
Awesome.
we're gonna go with 8th on Monday like we always do, and then we're gonna go on Tuesday with her. And I got grandpa duty that day, but I'm gonna do my very best to be in here. But I'll make sure it premieres for sure. If I'm able to be in here, I'll do it live right afterwards with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, those follow-up lives are great. It lets us maybe see things that we didn't really see in the moment and kind of delve into them a little bit and set the stage for next time and engage the audience and everything in it. So I think that's definitely an awesome plan, and I'll be in the chat too, just supporting character in there.
Right on. Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much it, guys. That we got a lot of cool stuff coming up on the channel, by the way. So I still have inventors coming up and asking me, and negative res coils. So hopefully you got your stuff all situated and you're ready to come on at some point. I really want to see those wine bottles, man, and talk about that. So yeah,
we got the next parts of Eighth Sinner coming up too.
Yeah,
and the Organites and wherever else that conversation goes, because it went, we went all over the place and always brought it back to Organites, but there's lots of discussion that we had there and we did pre-recorded. And I'm hoping some people in the audience, are starting to see like, hey, listen, people are coming up saying their piece. It doesn't necessarily have to be an invention. It could just be like a theory, an idea that they have, that kind of feeds into the whole greater picture of things. And, if you want to get on here and talk about it, you should definitely reach out to me or Nathan. And, we're more than happy to do that.
Nice. Got a new video coming out tomorrow. I love watching those things, by the way. So, yeah, but it's going to be cool, man. A lot of good things coming up. It's going to be another busy week. And then I got my own projects going on, so they'll be thrown in there and sprinkled out throughout the time. So
nice. And any idea when you're going to get the gravity well spinning? I mean, I know it's contingent on your ankle, but
my ankle's fine now. I just got to get the time.
Good.
So today, great little bit of grandpa duty, but then I'm going to take out the saw and start cutting, and everything else is already printed out on a 3D printer. It's ready to go. So that's all I had to do was the last piece. Do that, drill some holes, attach a few pieces of wood. Man, we're up and going. There's just testing motors, stuff like that. But I'll give you a call when I do that, and we'll look at it and put it together piece by piece.
I'm dying of anticipation. I think we all are. Yeah, no pressure.
No, I know. I'm sorry, guys. I should have had it done a week ago. I don't like to play with saws if I can't stand right. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's not worth getting hurt over. There's always tomorrow.
Yeah. So anyway, man, yeah, I can't wait. So guys, on Tuesday, when you guys watch that Atlantis episode, and dude, it's going to be so awesome. So yeah, with that said, I want to thank everybody in the chat, man. Thanks for hanging out with us today. I appreciate everybody, speaking on everything. And
one last thing before you wrap up totally.
Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. But Atlantis Rising was explaining about the Emerald tablets and how hermetical teachings are just, next level to understanding any sort of esoteric cult knowledge and, greater understanding. I want to make an open invitation to anybody that watches this stuff that, if these subjects interest you, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, on a personal level and, to see whatever you need to get done in order to bring yourself into some kind of alignment, a better understanding of some of the hermetical teachings, how that ties into Christianity, Jesus Christ, and probably just the truth all in all. It's my truth, but, probably is the truth. And I want to have that open invitation out there too, because if I could help people in that way, they say, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, if the horse finds his way to the water, you could show him how to drink. So I'd like to make myself available in that capacity to anybody who's interested. And we could put in the description after the fact of the post how to get in touch with me.
Okay, I'll do that.
Cool.
Right on, guys. Yeah, it's Tuesday that's going to come out. So I'll do the a little bit of build up before it. So anyway, guys, thank you very much and have a great day.
Peace and love.